Did you know that over 1 million Americans are dying annually of just heart disease and cancer alone? Do our doctors know the cause? Join us for the next 30 minutes of eye-opening science.
Hi there, my name's Dr. Greg Emerson. I'm a physician from Brisbane, Australia. I first met Doug a few years ago and my life's never been the same again. It's an honor and a pleasure to be on his show, and welcome to Know the Cause.
Well, welcome aboard. Thank you for being with us. Dr. Greg Emerson, all the way from Brisbane, Australia. By the way, he's going to be in town here in Dallas soon, and we're going to do some retaping with him. Wonderful, wonderful doctor. By the way, Kyle Drew joins me today.
Hey, Doug.
Good to see you, Kyle.
Nice to see you.
Look at us in sweaters.
Look at
this.
It's cold what outside. Is this? I know.
Kyle and I are going to be discussing a whole lot of things. Really, this is going to be a me and Kyle show. So you're watching a show that's really going to be uninterrupted.
Yeah, the misconceptions about the whole phase one
diet
thing.
And the whole fungus thing.
Yeah,
We need to discuss
there's
that.
a lot of those.
We also need to discuss a couple of the questions we had here today. Inflammation and arthritis. Did you see this one?
Yep.
Can fungus be passed to the unborn?
That's a big
good. You guys are smart.
That's interesting.
And then, of course, we're going to be discussing Kyle's problem with low J. Serious. In the opening of the show, we're going to be discussing low J. It's not low T, it's low J. All that and more on today's Know the Cause. So we introduced in the opening of the show something called low J, and we said that Kyle has it.
I don't have it.
No, you have it. Believe me, we all have it. We'll explain what that is in a few minutes. It has to do with juicing, right? All the minerals, vitamins, protein, not protein, but all the good stuff in juicing, enzymes especially. Before we do, folks, so many new viewers, so many new networks have joined us. Thank you all. Welcome to the show. I am just your humbled host. Kyle joined me 10, 12 years ago. He was a pharmaceutical sales rep for the biggest pharmaceutical company, and he was selling chemotherapy drugs. Boy, did I pull him out of that. And we got together. He read some of the scientific data that has been published about fungus, and here we are today. Here's what we know. I'm going to let Kyle talk about, because he's so well versed in supplements and medicines and pharmacology and so forth. Let me talk a few minutes about what this phase one diet is. Then I want Kyle to talk about natural versus pharmaceutical antifungal drugs, which I think is a good idea for those of you who think you may have an internal or external fungal condition, both diet and some supplements that might wipe it out. The diet was born out of our understanding that fungus, like worms, parasitize man, little tiny microscopic things. And the more I studied this 40 years ago in mycology, the study of fungus, the more I realized that these little tiny fungi aren't the harmless big worms you see in your body. They emit a poison. Of the couple million, Kyle, species, 1.5 million species, I think they say are out there, of fungus, we found a couple hundred now that are pathogenic in man. So 200 of these fungi can cause jock itch, can cause the things way beyond, ringworm and so forth, and things doctors don't yet know. Things I think like diabetes and some tumors are actually caused by this fungus. So the diet was one that was built out of necessity. How can I eat to starve this fungal parasite? Fungus hates eggs, it hates nuts, it hates grass-fed meat, but it loves grains and sugar and potato chips and hot bread and beer. Okay, so the diet, everything I wasn't eating, back when I was 21, 22 years old, I was sick. Everything that I was eating, beer and cookies and potato chips and so forth, were all the foods feeding the fungus. And it got a stronghold in me and I got sick. So I developed a diet, today we call it the phase one diet, that annihilates fungus by starving it. Some people just need the phase one diet for a period of time, maybe a month, before they feel so much better. But some people need to talk to their doctor about either an antifungal drug or antifungal supplements.
Yeah, when we talk about antifungal supplements versus antifungal drugs, I always think of supplements first because I always think natural first.
Yep.
And so you're talking about things like caprylic acid, you're talking about oregano oil, olive leaf extract, coconut oil, cat's claw, pau d'arco, blah, 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 blah. If we sped me up and I
Vitamin
talked
C.
for 10, that's the thing that was interesting to me about the first time that you came on the radio show with me in Oklahoma City. And here was Doug, sort of my hero. I had watched him on TV from afar, and he comes on my radio show. I forget my name, I can't talk. And then I asked him about the Health Food Center. I said, how many antifungals do you think are in this gigantic 27,000 square foot health store? And he said, thousands. And I thought he was going to say like a dozen. And I said, what are you even talking about? And he said, vitamin C is antifungal. Vitamin A is antifungal. If it is a natural nutrient that has survived the germination process, has grown up through the ground, there are antifungal components to it. And if it works, there's an antifungal component to it. I thought, that's weird.
So how
right?
antifungal is juicing?
Oh, yeah.
I want to show
Huge.
people something.
Oh, don't
this
show
is
this.
your drink.
Yeah.
Look at all of those antifungals on the left. I mean, even the lemon in the back, the
Okay.
oil in that lemon.
So you've got the kale, you've got the parsley, you've got Swiss chard, spinach, celery, cucumber, purple Brussels sprouts, broccoli. This little guy right here, that's turmeric.
Oh, yeah.
That's turmeric
Oh,
root.
yeah. Yeah,
and
yeah.
lemon and an apple. Throw that in, and you've got this at the end of it. And I'm telling you, this is magic. I would never eat this whole thing probably in a day, but I can get it all if I juice it, makes it easy, get it all in. How many antifungals are in this? It's not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's
Oh,
thousands.
It's thousands of them.
Right?
And we say antioxidants. Every time I see that word, I change the oxidants and I put fungal. If it has oxidative value, it has antifungal value. Now don't go away, because Kyle and I are going to talk a whole bunch more on this and other topics on Know the Cause. I have been beating this drum for 40 years. That avocados aren't bad, that walnuts aren't bad.
Well, Denny tells me in California right now, this is really big juicing.
Huge.
Yeah, in Texas, our juice comes in cans. You know, we pop the top of it, it comes in. This is, folks, this is amazing. This is a couple green apples, a whole bunch of kale, cucumbers, cilantro, lemons, ginger. The question always comes aboard, Denny, at one time or another, why do people juice? And I think we're looking at a whole tray filled with food that you can chug down and get huge amounts of benefit,
Right.
nutritional benefit from
Right.
it by just drinking.
Right, especially if you're sick or fighting a cold or the flu or something, it's great because it's just, as you said, it's like amped up.
But for you,
Yes.
Denny, there's a double benefit, and that's what's coming out of the other side of the machine, because the dogs, just, you mix that with their raw meat or something? Or?
Yeah, all the pulp that comes out the other, they love this stuff. Even with ginger in it, which is surprising, they love ginger too.
Well, with all respect to
Oh,
the dogs.
look at that.
Look at that.
Isn't that beautiful?
Green juicing.
Now you could add other things to this. Obviously, you could spinach or any other green vegetable. If you really wanted to spice it up, serrano chili pepper is great. Be careful; it's pretty
Garlic,
spicy.
yeah.
Garlic is really good for you when you're fighting colds.
I love juice. I don't do it enough. The ginger in there just adds its
I
own
know.
taste. You
Doesn't
put
it?
the whole lemon in, the rind
Right,
and
the
everything.
rind and
Yeah.
everything, yeah, which is really good for you, as
And
you
the
know.
cucumber in there is so good. This, you know, let food be your medicine and medicine become your food. Let food be your medicine. It's so interesting. The Bible talks about this in Genesis. I will give you every green plant for food. It's so interesting the way we shy away from all of that. And yet this is a whole meal in a glass. Juicing. It's big in California.
Huge. There's a juice bar on. I mean, it's like the coffee when the coffee stores first started popping up everywhere. Juice bars are
It's
popping
about
up
time.
like that. Yeah.
I like that. That's good nutrition. Thank
Yeah.
you, Denny. This is really good.
Yeah.
Here we are on the set of DDT, Doug's Daily Take. We decided to do this here to encourage you to join me every day. What you see on TV and what you can see every day at your time avails on DDT are two quite different things. I can unload a little better on DDT on the internet. Here, I have to be subdued. So I'm going to read you this headline, and that's my take. Men with prostate cancer should eat healthy vegetable fats, says a study. Let me tell you why I'm enamored by this. I have been beating this drum for 40 years that avocados aren't bad, that walnuts aren't bad, and yet I remember decades ago nutritionists saying, no, all fat is building up plaque in your arteries and amyloid plaque in your brain, and that makes you sick and that causes heart attacks. Folks, we are on a mission to get fat out of people's body. What are statin drugs? Lower your triglycerides and cholesterol artificially. In this study, it was really good. Finally, doctors are starting to think diet. It was really good. It said, look, instead of a ham sandwich, one of them actually says this, instead of a ham sandwich, eat a half a ham sandwich. It says, instead of a potato, have an avocado. They're starting to think the right way, starting. Now, you give these guys with prostate disease a drug called Nizoral that kills fungus also, and get them on our phase 1 diet, because it does say peanuts okay here, and I don't think it is, and you're going to see some real changes, real progress made in a disease called prostate cancer. But then I'm Doug Kaufman, and that's just my take. Welcome to DDT.
Hi, I'm Susie Cohen, America's Pharmacist. We all love grapefruits, but did you know their seeds have health benefits too? Makers sell supplements of grapefruit seed extract. It's also called GSE for short. It's basically concentrated grapefruit seeds, a little pulp, and some of the white pith of the grapefruit. If you take GSE, you can't help but notice the bitter taste. It's much stronger than an actual grapefruit, but that bitterness is the secret to some surprising health benefits. I'd personally just pucker up because I think GSE is good for you. It acts like an antibiotic as well as an antifungal, and you can take it by mouth or you can apply it to your skin for fungal infections. It seems to reduce the risk of colon cancer too, but I'd be real careful because grapefruits, grapefruit juice, and GSE supplements all interact with dozens of drugs, including a common blood thinner called warfarin. So check this out and ask your doctor if eating grapefruits or taking GSE supplements is okay for you. I'll see you next time.
Are you enjoying it so far? We thought we'd go back to the beginning on this Know the Cause, and maybe you're making a tape of this, and you can always go back and check your data here. Kyle talked a little bit about supplementation and foods being antifungal. Is it no wonder the American cancer, American heart, American lung, American nose, everybody has a diet that prevents these diseases, and they're all the foods you saw because he had low J. He didn't juice enough, but now he is juicing enough, and he's getting all of these great positive oxidants, antioxidants in his body, and they're antifungal also. Yep. You talked about the supplements, and you named quite a few of them.
Yep.
But not the medications. Tell us a little bit about when medications are needed.
Back to I left that industry. No. Sometimes you're going to have medications. Thank goodness they're there. It's the overuse of medications I've always been concerned about. Yes, you've got diflucan. Yes, you've got nystatin. You have Lamisil. You have a number of great antifungal prescription medications, and wow, the incredible studies that have come out on these lately showing its relationship between the antifungals and anti-cancer and anti-diabetes. It's incredible. So if that's part of it, but please, so many people, sometimes nowadays, they will take these prescription antifungals thinking that these are the big boys, these are the strong ones, and they will do it to the exclusion of the diet.
Exactly.
And they'll take all of this medication prescription and they won't do the diet. And I'm telling you, number one, talk about misconceptions. We'll talk about the misconceptions of the phase 1. Here's one of them. One misconception is it's the prescription antifungals that are the most powerful, and these cutesy little juice things are the least powerful. I think it's just flipped the other way around. I think it's the juicing and the natural antifungals that are the big boys. Sometimes you need prescription medications for various reasons, but there's also the misconception that you can take a handful of supplements or pills to the exclusion of the diet, and it'll still have the same effects. It will not. The diet comes first, much to my chagrin, by the way. I was a supplement guy. I thought that I could get away with only doing that, not changing my diet. It's diet first.
Some of the misconceptions of the Phase 1 diet, boy, I have heard it all. Number one, is this a low-calorie diet?
Oh, yeah,
You
that
know,
is a big
is
one.
this like these ads I see on TV where people lose 800 pounds, by following a eating microly? It's nothing ceases to amaze me in America anymore. You bring up some of the great misconceptions in your talk.
I'll tell you, one of the things that people say is they will write us letters, and we've almost put them on, but it's almost going to sound like we're making fun of people, and that's not what we're doing. But sometimes people will say, listen, I'm on the Phase 1 diet, and I'm getting no results whatsoever. Maybe we'll call them, write them back or something. Turns out they'll say, yeah, I started the Phase 1 diet last week. Well, that's number one. It takes 1 week before anything starts to affect. Listen, stay on the Phase 1 diet for a period of time. Make sure that you're
Say a
giving it
month.
enough time.
Give it a minimum
month.
of a month,
Give it
yeah.
a couple of months. Give it the rest of your life. Believe me, that's what I'm doing.
But Kyle,
and things
they're
work
saying
well. But
I introduced walnuts, or I ate 2 eggs, and I'm on the Phase 1 diet, and then I had pasta for dinner.
right, they'll say I had cereal, but I also included a Phase 1 food like eggs with it. I had pasta, but I also included broccoli with it. Therefore, I'm on the Phase 1 diet. No. The Phase 1 diet is just the Phase 1 diet, only the Phase 1 foods for a period of time.
Kyle, let me back up a little bit. 40 years ago, when I got into this field and I
Yeah.
began to see that fungi were parasites
Yeah.
and that grains were feeding them, the biggest misconception then, which it still is today, if it weren't for these great doctors all writing these books on grains and how bad they are, the biggest misconception is, Doug, you're going to kill people by taking them off grains. And then what, 20 years later we had whole grains. What in the world were we eating before? Half grains? It's so amazing the marketing that is done, folks. And I may eat some grain from time to time, but I know if I feel miserable the next day, it's linked back to these mycotoxins that commonly grow in our sugar and our grain supply in America today.
One other misconception. No, this is not the Atkins diet. That's a big misconception. This can be as high protein or as low protein as you want. It actually can have a lot of carbs. You saw the picture of my juice. That is a lot of carbohydrates, but it's the antifungal version of carbohydrates that we emphasize with this diet.
Another quick misconception, you're going to feel great from day one. As a matter of fact, you'll probably feel miserable from day one as these little fungi burst and emit these poisons that we'll talk about when we get back from this break.
Know the Cause has just changed my entire life for sure. It's getting down to the root issue that seems to be avoided by so many in the medical profession and the pharmaceutical profession. We began about 3 years ago watching Know the Cause. I knew that God wanted us healthy, but I didn't know the specifics of how to make that happen other than what's being taught in mainstream media. We know that diet and exercise is so critical. The specifics of what to eat and why to eat those things, that's what we got from Know the Cause. The fact of the matter is that a lot of people have begun to believe that their health conditions are not solvable by just simply looking at how our bodies respond to trauma. Our bodies heal themselves, and if our bodies are not healing themselves and if they're getting worse, that's an indication that something's wrong, something's off, and we need to get to the root cause of it. If you ignore information that's being presented to you to heal you, that information that can save your life, then the ignorance is actually willful. I've been on the Phase 1 diet and I might fall off the wagon, but I get back up and I do what I have to do. And I am getting some improvement. My weight is coming down, my waist is shrinking, my chronic sinusitis issues, all of that is dissipating. So I know it's working. When something's working and people are getting results, it's worth paying attention to. Final advice is watch Know the Cause, because you will get the true answer to the true problem.
And welcome back. I promised you that I'd talk a little bit about some of these fungal proteins, etc. Fungi make these pathogenic, couple hundred species of fungi, make poisonous substances. We know, everybody knows, thanks to Bill Crook and many other books, about Candida albicans, right? Vaginal yeast and, thrush in the mouth and so forth. But we don't know about the couple hundred other species, the Fusarium, the Aspergillus, the Penicillium, all these long name molds that make poisons. It is not so much the fungus, although that can impregnate you and cause problems. It's the poison it makes once it's rooted inside your body. And remember, fungus grows in a sac. They're called ascomycete fungi. They grow in a sac, just like, almost unidentifiable from a cancer tumor.
I got to say something. I'm sorry, but there are so many people who are starting to key in on Doug's plan, Doug's research over the years, and I just have to say something because he's not going to say it. There are people who get kind of the outer ring of this fungus message right by getting the Candida thing right. That was Bill Crook, and thank goodness for him and a lot of these early pioneers. Some people are starting to see that even a few more fungi. Nobody has put it all together with the diet that also has a link to some of the grains and other foods that are impregnated with these mycotoxins. Mycotoxins are almost never talked about in any other book. This is the most comprehensive approach to dealing with health and dealing with the fungus link to whatever that is out there. And this is why I call it the Kaufman diet. He still wants to call it the Phase 1 diet. I call it the Kaufman diet. He kind of pushes that aside because he doesn't want to attach his name to it. But I'm telling you, this is what makes it special. He links all of these things together. So one misconception, by the way, is, oh, you're talking about Candida. Well, I don't have Candida. Well, big deal. There's 100 other more that you may have.
I love Denise's question here. Can fungus be passed to an unborn child? As surely as fungus disseminates or metastasizes through the blood, hundreds, if not thousands, of scientific articles. How does this stuff get from the lungs to the bladder? It disseminates via the bloodstream. To that end, mother and child are united. Can fungus be passed to an unborn child? Folks, one of my concerns today is this wasn't done 50 years ago. It seems all pregnant women are given mycotoxins to take during the third trimester, months 7, 8, and 9. What are the mycotoxins? They're called antibiotics. Somebody scraped off the cervix some bacteria, and all of a sudden, this mother is going to die of a bacterial problem or pass it to her child. Worse, I think, she's going to pass mycotoxins to her child. So yes,
which are genotoxic.
Thank you.
And that could create DNA. Yeah, and they say there's a DNA problem, but what caused the DNA problem?
Thank you, Kyle. That's so important. A child is born with a genetic disorder. Why? Mycotoxins are known to break genetic strands. Amen. Now, let's go to this one. Where does the inflammation... Kyle, this is so good. Thank you, Doris. Where does that swelling come? What makes bread swell?
There it is. Oh, that's an actual question. The whole show is about fungus. Guess what the answer is? We talk about this a lot. No, this is a great question because it's so new for so many people to think, okay, what's causing inflammation? It's what Doug just said. What makes bread rise? Could it be the cause of why you're rising right here or right here or right here? It's the same thing.
Show me an arthritis specialist that knows this, folks. All he wants to do and all you want is relief of pain, so you don't ask the right questions. Why am I swelling? Don't go away. We've got a quiz for you in the wrap-up of today's Know the Cause.
In the beginning of October of 2012, I was diagnosed with neuroendocrine carcinoma. I was told I have a mass in the pancreas and that I had stage 3 metastases in the liver. In November, I began the Phase 1 diet as well as some supplements. And I used the infrared sauna, the far infrared sauna. And by January, all the masses have shrunk in half except for the pancreas. It has shrunk, it just hasn't shrunk in half yet. I've had anxiety for years, that's disappeared. I've had thinning hair, my hair started to grow back. Dry skin is going away. I've had nothing but wonderful results. Don't make a hasty decision. Do your research. Start the Phase 1 diet and then find the supplements that are going to work best for you. Take your antifungals. I've taken antifungals since.
My whole life I've had problems with asthma, allergies, depression, migraines, sinus issues, irritable bowel, folliculitis, dermatitis, eczema, you name it. I've had my bout with just about everything. And about a year ago, I finally found a doctor who really believed that your health correlates with what you're eating. So after doing some testing, we found out that my yeast levels were through the roof. So she gave me some guidelines to follow in my diet, and it was all very confusing, and the internet made it worse. So I happened to go into our very small town health food store, and the owner looked at everything I was buying, and I had a book about yeast, and she asked if I had a problem, and so I told her about it, and she said, oh, well, you have to look at this cookbook. And she pulled out Doug's cookbook, Eating Your Way to Good Health. And I was floored. For one, everything I was about to buy I couldn't eat, and secondly, there was actually like an entire book of food I could eat, which was amazing because I'd been so depressed that I couldn't eat anything. So I've been following his plan for about 9 months, and I did go through some die-off phases that were not the best experiences, but I survived. And after a month of phase 1, I went into phase 2, and now 9 months later, I have no symptoms. I haven't had to use my inhaler. Everybody said this was the worst year for allergies. I never experienced any issues. My irritable bowel issues are completely gone, and through it all, I've lost 85 pounds. I feel like a completely new person. I just praise God for giving us Doug.
I know that some of you enjoy a glass of wine or a drink from time to time, and here's what I want to do, not judge you, certainly. What I want to do is try and teach you quickly what that is. You see, the fungus is called brewer's yeast. The byproduct, or the poison it makes, is called alcohol. So if you drink, don't drink a lot, drink a little bit. And then before you go to bed at night, some cooked spinach, the green chlorophyll, should help sop up the mycotoxins that are now left in the tummy. We decided today to bring you some of the common threads that, what is it about this diet? What are antifungals? Do I need to go to my doctor and ask for an nystatin? And I hope we've answered those today. This is kind of a long one, so let's start here. Kyle, if you can read that, because I can't see that.
All right, so what does Dr. Elias Anisi say about blood testing for the fungus aspergillus in his book, Clinical Mycology? A, that all patients with cancer should be tested for aspergillus.
Yes.
B, all patients with recurring sinus infection should be tested for aspergillus.
Yes.
C, patients with positive blood tests for aspergillus typically have unusually low blood temperature.
Yes.
Or D, aspergillus usually eludes detection because blood cultures performed on infected patients almost always test negative for this fungus.
Isn't that sad?
Sort of yes for everything.
And look at what the answer is.
The actual
blood
answer is
test.
D.
A doctor who knows fungus will take blood and run it.
And that's another misconception. What are the blood tests that I can use to
Yeah.
know that I have aspergillus or any other fungus?
Past exposure is proven on blood tests, not current symptoms. Kyle,
You
thank
bet. Hey, it's nice to see you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, folks, for joining us today. Tell a friend about Know the Cause. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.